Good morning, everyone. It's Monday morning, the 2nd of June. Severe weather still staying pretty active across the country, especially in areas that traditionally see it, let's say, in April and May. It keeps going in the Great Plains and increasingly in the Northern Plains, too. Here's our morning satellite view of the entire U.S. You see some interesting features. Finally, in the Northeast, this system, the main circulation is lifted off, but you can still see a little loopy pattern right there. And the Canadian wildfire smoke is actually helping to outline some of these areas. That in particular is one. And then here's another sweeping plume of it right there. And then there's a cutoff system over Arizona producing some needed rain. The coverage isn't great. But that's probably some of the driest parts of the country in terms of drought index. Of course, it's always pretty dry there. And then increasing activity across the northern plains, and we'll show that. Let's take a look at what the triple R high resolution model says about thunderstorms. It shows the swirl over Arizona increasingly moving into New Mexico and Colorado. Looks like some sort of linear feature. You'd be right. That'd be a front that's moving through the northern plains, firing off thunderstorms. Some tornado potential in there. I'll talk about that in a minute. Thunderstorms are very active right offshore or in southern Florida during this next 2-day period as well. And then as we get into Wednesday, or Tuesday rather, you start seeing a pretty good line of thunderstorms developing there, and that is the focus of the outlook for Tuesday. Let's take a look at Monday first, though. We do have that thunderstorm risk in southeast Florida, level 1 out of 5 chance of severe weather there. That's almost always going to be severe wind gusts or maybe a little bit of hail. Not a tornado threat with that. Now, in the central plains, we have the reflection of a frontal system that's dropping in like that. You can see just how the outlook is shaped, what's going on. And then it's just kind of a continuation of thunderstorm threat down the dry line. That's a 2 out of 5 risk on Monday. There is a tornado threat with that squall line that develops from Sioux Falls through the heart of Nebraska, getting into parts of northeast Colorado for today. That's a 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles. The Nadocast pretty much agrees with that almost right down to the letter. There is a 2% chance. That's that darker green area as well. If we take a look at the SIPS model for severe weather today, it bullseyes central Nebraska, so that's pretty much in line with the SPC forecast. And they also have another, they just look at analog matching. So they take a look at this rough pattern of weather and then look back in the past and see what happens. So there's a 15% risk there down in far west Texas, along with a 2% tornado probability. And they don't find a pattern match for anything developing up there where the tornado risk for today has been outlined. So we'll see how that works. But producing tornadoes in the high plains doesn't really take a lot sometimes. The geography helps you out a lot in West Texas, so I wouldn't be surprised to see one down there. Now, as far as CSU's learning machine, it takes a combination of past patterns, current weather, and then tries to just do an AI type of approach to severe weather, and it shows a maximum tornado threat there at about 5% in western Nebraska, but extending along pretty much the same area as SPC's forecast. Pretty much a high hail risk in that area too, with a 30% probability, and then just kind of a general windbag kind of approach to that developing area of showers and storms out there in the plains. Now we go to Tuesday, and we have a level 1 and 2. That is so 2 is the what we used to be called the slight risk. It still is actually, but that extends along a broad brush from southern Wisconsin all the way down through much of Missouri, especially western Missouri, and pretty much covering all of Oklahoma except the Panhandle, and even extending down into Texas. So that is a pretty good area. It reflects the fact that there's a frontal system coming in like this. There's still a dry line in play out here somewhere, so it kind of combines those two. And even now, like I said in yesterday's video, we're seeing a little bit more focus. I wouldn't be a bit surprised tomorrow if we get a little more focus here, especially, and maybe up along the front. I'm not sure. And by focus, I mean either an enhancement to the next level up or just a shape that reflects what's going on a little bit better. Not surprising. We just get closer to the event. The models get a little more accurate and the confidence builds. The tornado outlook for Tuesday is that same broad brush, but it does include Madison, much of western Illinois. Kind of splits the difference there in Missouri between St. Louis and Kansas City. So the capital, Jefferson City, Columbia, in the risk there. Springfield, not quite, but close. Areas northwest of there are, and Oklahoma City is certainly in a 2% chance for tornadoes on Tuesday. CSU's, Colorado State University's model mimics the tornado threat just about exactly as the SPC. It does shift the hail threat down to Texas a little bit more, and the wind, with a squall line developing, I think, is enhanced along that area from central Missouri down to around, just off to the east of Wichita Falls. Then things get a little more diffuse on Wednesday. It breaks up into two. We have a little bit more drier, stable air building in here. So we have frontal activity there in Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, including Detroit and Indianapolis. And then a return of flow across the plains again, favorable low-level winds, enough return moisture to put a 1 risk there from south central Colorado into the eastern portion of New Mexico. Let's see what CSU does with that. Yeah, they do indeed put a slight tornado risk down there in Colorado Springs, for example. And they put the hail and risk really in that area. Not much of a wind risk with those storms, except for along the front in Ohio. Interesting. Now, they did pull, the SPC, that is, a day 4 outlook. They do day 4 through 8 a little bit different. They don't actually do the 5 categories. They do a 15 or a 30% chance of any severe weather within a 25-mile radius. So when they pull the trigger on day 4, that's actually pretty significant. That means they see something that's worth talking about. It meets this criteria. That doesn't mean, by the way, that severe storms may not occur on a day that they don't do this. It just has to be widespread enough for them to pull the trigger on this. So on Thursday, it's more of a traditional West Texas, West Oklahoma, South Central Kansas scenario. If we look at CSU's model there, and the nice thing about that is they show the SPC's forecast on the right, and what they find on the left, and there's a pretty good match there, just kind of a broad-brushed extension of a weaker severe weather risk eastward along that front. And then no more SPCs after this, but Friday, an elongated area of severe weather. I've been talking about this for a while. It looks like we're going to have several days of not just severe weather possibilities, but also heavier rain. So we're going to set up in here too. And I'll have a weather to watch later on this afternoon, a video that talks about that a little more extensively. If you live in the Ozarks, I reviewed that yesterday on the heads up video. It's pretty much still valid. Take a look at that. But I just think the rain chances probably extend beyond what I talked about, which was pretty much Tuesday and Wednesday. I think we can extend that into Thursday and Friday too. So this is Friday severe weather log. Saturday, does it look stalled? It's because it is. The front just kind of hangs up right here with weak jet stream winds. So this is going to be an interesting stormy pattern for the Central Plains. Even into Sunday, even though we look a little more diffuse, it's probably because it's just a far out forecast at 7 days, asking a lot. So here's the supercell composite outlook for June 2nd today through the 8th. You can look at this as a kind of a summary of the first 7 days that we just talked about. And indeed, it bullseyes Oklahoma and Texas and then extends a little bit eastward from that. That's pretty much in line with what the outlooks were showing. On June 9th, we still have that same activity, but we have enhanced supercell activity in the northern plains. And again, a supercell is a thunderstorm that survives longer. It's in favorable shear so that the cold downdraft winds don't cut off the updraft winds and make it a long-lasting storm. It does technically talk about all 3 modes of severe weather, which is hail, wind, and tornadoes. But it probably is not going to address tornadoes very well because there are low-level wind field features that the models don't pick up on that far out. And this is already pretty far out, and we have 2 more. So here's week 2. A little bullseye there in Oklahoma, but really kicking up in the northern plains, which you kind of expect to have happen because the jet stream winds are retreating during the summer months up to this area here. And the instability, the moisture in particular, is able to get up there just thanks to sustained flow pattern. It just gets up into Montana and Dakotas a little more readily. Now here is Tuesday. I think I cut off the last one. Sorry. Here is Tuesday's 500 millibar mean. This is from the EPS. So this is Tuesday. Remember, the severe weather threat was aligned right along here. So you see a strong belt of jet stream winds that are favorable, and certainly a good return of unstable air. So not surprising if that's the forecast for that day. On Wednesday, the thing moves off. The stronger winds that we just showed you moving to the northeast. Still a little bit of troughiness. There's another little wave back here. So that's why this severe weather threat and the heavy rain threat through this area is just going to keep reinventing itself, I think. So through Thursday, very little change. High pressure ridge in northern Mexico, so hot and dry in South Texas. But anything along here is going to be still subjected to the winds and the unstable pattern through Thursday. And again, as you saw, I think we can even extend that into Friday and maybe even Saturday. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day one because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.